how an incredible soldier transformed a mocked maid's life in an unexpected twist of fate. The oppressive weight of mourning hung in the air as Sarah slipped into the starched crispness of her maid's uniform, its stiff collar scratching at her neck. Each dawn marked the same cycle, rising before the world awoke, navigating the opulent halls of the Grand Oak Hotel, where the golden touches of elegance only highlighted her shadowy existence. Guests breezed past her, eyes glazed over, dismissing her as merely another cog in the machinery. Yet here she was, the lifeblood of their comfort, suppressing her ambitions to support her ailing mother and younger siblings. The vitality she once channeled into painting now lay buried beneath layers of obligation and despair. As she polished the brass doorknobs, Sarah's thoughts spiraled into a whirlwind of self-doubt. Was she merely an invisible figure in this hotel, destined to remain in the gutters of society? The sharp inhale of breath caught in her throat, every measly paycheck nudging her further from the chance to reclaim her dreams. She recalled vibrant colors bursting forth on canvas, not merely reflecting landscapes, but her inner heart, pulsating with hope and yearning for validation. But how could she sacrifice herself for the glimmer of a future that felt impossibly distant? Then there was Jake, a soldier weathering the storm of his own dislocation. His valor in combat should have rendered him a local hero, yet between the echoing memories of war and the banality of everyday life, his purpose felt like a natural disaster left unresolved. Seeking redemption, he engaged with the town from a community center, his own wounds masked beneath a mantle of camaraderie. When he happened upon Sarah's whispered story, caught between laughter and tears, a compelling urge surged through him. How could he turn a blind eye to the dreams she had drowned in duty? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With a deep breath that matched the weight of her trepidation, Sarah found herself drawn to Jake's proposal of mentorship. Art classes reignited the flames that flickered within, but every brushstroke she placed on canvas felt like both liberation and betrayal. A wavering tightrope strung between her dreams and the anger roiling around her ambition. She was chased by the ghosts of disapproval, eyes wide in disbelief, voices disrupting her once delightful reveries, igniting self-recrimination. Days wore on with both of them spiraling into impossible expectations and silent fears. When a charity gala unfurled its lavish invitations across the town, Sarah's vulnerability heightened. It was there she lost herself, not through her art, but through ridicule. Insults clouded her thoughts as laughter cut through her resolve, and the weight of her role felt magnified, as if she was meant to wear shame as a badge. The tears she fought to hold back cascaded over her cheeks, a stark contrast against the polite clinking of glasses and polite smiles. Jake's determination solidified in watching her humiliation, igniting new anxiety within her. Their connection felt like a fragile lifeline, swaying with the currents of public opinion. The impending art show loomed, her mind a battlefield turning against her, every thought tangled in fear that her dreams could either soar or crush them both. With the town polarized against her artistic ambitions, all that remained was an unbearable tension. Two positions on the precipice of change, but set against each other like a coiled spring ready to snap. The night of the show edged ever closer, and as shadows crept over Cedar Springs, both Sarah and Jake braced for potential ruin or redemption, hearts taut with uncertainty, ready to confront what lay ahead. As dawn approached, a thin veil of light began to seep through Sarah's window, illuminating the scattered remnants of her previous night's preparations.
The art show loomed over her like a specter of uncertainty, every canvas feeling like a testament to her struggles rather than an avenue of expression. Each piece she had created under Jake's guidance echoed her desires, but also amplified her fears. Feeling the brushes bristle against her fingertips created a flicker of hope, yet the shadows of self-doubt loomed large. What if her work became the source of ridicule once more? She wrestled with the thought of stepping into the spotlight she had long evaded, knowing that to do so meant facing the very criticisms she had worked so hard to suppress. The memory of the gala and the stinging laughter felt freshly etched in her mind, a dark reminder that acceptance was a fickle companion. Jake's unwavering faith in her brought warmth to her cold resolve. He had said so many times that art was a reflection, not just of skill, but of vulnerability. Yet with every passing moment, his encouragement felt like a daunting burden. To showcase her heart on a canvas was one thing, but to risk it facing the public scorn quelled her spirit. The dichotomy was palpable, a yearning for recognition intertwined with trepidation of judgment, both claiming space within her. Determined to cultivate some semblance of control, Sarah took a breath that filled her lungs with courage and strategy. Today was about pushing boundaries, even if that meant confronting her deepest fears. She decided to head to the Grand Oak for a final run-through, needing to familiarize herself with the venue and its vast expanse that felt so alien despite her daily presence as a maid. As she crossed the threshold into the
hotel, entangled in the trappings of wealth, the familiar smell of polished wood and expensive perfumes struck her. The hallways seemed larger now, the opulence almost suffocating. Slowly, Sarah made her way towards the event space, her heart quickening at the notion of stepping into it, not as an employee, but as an artist. Inside, she could picture her works hanging proudly, vibrant strokes of color illuminating the walls. But each point of light also represented the potential for coldness. A small knot formed in her stomach as she envisioned the crowd inspecting her paintings, their whispers laced with scorn. The night felt both thrilling and terrifying, a tightrope walk between adulation and condemnation. In her mind, the echoes of Jake's voice reverberated. Art is a leap. With each brush, you dive deeper into your own truth. She was both exhilarated and terrified, standing at the precipice, ready to dive into the unknown. As she observed the quiet expanse of the empty venue, she recognized the truth of her predicament. The only way out of her cocoon was through embracing her insecurities. Sarah's heart raced with an unusual intensity as she grappled with the realization. Standing firm in her passions might usher in her metamorphosis, unfolding layers of herself long hidden away. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone to send Jake a message, pouring out her fears and a plea for support. Would he be in her corner, ready to ensure she didn't face this alone? As she waited for his response, doubt edged closer, poised to strike. And then came the thought that haunted her. What if tonight didn't just seal her identity as a maid or an artist, but as someone worthy of respect and acknowledgement? Would she emerge victorious or crumple under expectation? The door swung open, revealing Jake's silhouette, his presence a mix of calm intensity. "I came to see how you're feeling about tonight," he said, the sincerity in his voice grounding her. The moment hung thick with anticipation, and Sarah realized the burgeoning journey of her self-discovery was about to unfold in front of them both. But in the thrumming depths of her heart, she sensed a confrontation brewing, not only with the audience, but with the part of herself that still clung to the shadows. And as he stepped closer, a wave of realization surged through her. This was merely the beginning of their shared odyssey toward redemption, resilience, and revelation. The night of the show was not simply a test of her art, but of her very identity. How would she choose to face the world's inside and out? With determination fueling her, she took a step forward, ready to confront whatever awaited her on that stage. The finality of her choice lingered, and with it, a question hung like a fragile thread.
Who would she become after the final curtain fell? As the anticipation curdled in her chest, Sarah took a deep breath, drawing in the distinct scents of varnish and wood, które enveloped the Grand Oaks event space. Each whiff rekindled the ardor of creation mixed with the bitter taste of anxiety. Yet, within the trepidation, a fragile sense of purpose flickered, whispering that this night could redefine her narrative. Jake settled beside her, a steady presence instantly dissecting her self-doubt with an unwavering gaze. "You know, when I looked at your pieces, I didn't just see paint and canvas, I saw you," he said, his tone laced with warmth and resolve. "They're extensions of your heart, and tonight you get to share that." His words hung in the air like a lifeline, but Sarah clung to her insecurities with a fierce grip. What if they don't see what you see? What if I'm just a joke again? The dread seeped into her voice, daring to drown out the burgeoning tide of ambition threatening to emerge. Jake's eyes softened, and he gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You won't know unless you step up and share. Everyone has an opinion, but that's not what defines your worth." The affirmation propelled her thoughts in contrasting directions, wrestling with the tug of her insecurities versus the glimmer of possibility. The clock ticked down, and the swell of humanity beyond the doors pressed against her. This was no longer about the paintings. It was about shedding her skin, moving away from a life defined by servitude, and stepping into the light as the artist she ached to become. But could she readily embrace this metamorphosis? "Let's rehearse your speech," Jake suggested, breaking through her tumultuous reflections. "Share not just about the art, but about what it means to you." Her heart raced as she contemplated the prospect. "I'm not sure. What if I stumble over my words? What if they laugh? Sarah, the only thing worth fearing is a life lived inside the margins. You deserve to be here fully, raw and exposed." His confidence nudged her towards courage, yet she still hesitated. The mocking laughter of past insecurities echoed, clamoring for her attention. In a moment of desperation, Sarah picked up her phone, scrolling through her messages, avoiding eye contact with Jake. She needed validation, something to anchor her rising tide of emotion. But a heavy cloud of reality wrapped around her thoughts, fusing fear and longing, the knot she couldn't untangle. "Sarah," Jake said, gently but insistently, "speak your truth tonight. No one can take that from you." The simple strength of his words ignited something deep within her, the understanding that she held the power to rewrite her story, not just for others, but for herself. A moment passed as clarity filtered in. The realization dawned. Acceptance wouldn't come from their nods of approval, but from her willingness to own her journey, the struggles, the spirit, and the scars. "Okay," she whispered, feeling the tremors of doubt start to recede. "But what if I don't even remember what to say?" Jake smiled knowingly. "Let your heart guide you. Forget the
theatrics. It's about the essence of what you want to convey." As her foot tapped against the polished wood floor, the questions of fear shifted in her mind. A fierce determination grew, clawing its way to the surface. Sarah inhaled deeply one more time, allowing the moment to unfold. Courage propelled her forward, but the vulnerability of stepping into view also energized her resolve. Perhaps vulnerability wouldn't lead her to failure, but to the embrace of her true self. The minutes crawled towards the hour, and the anticipation of the crowd pulsed through her veins. She sensed her heart racing, matching the chaotic rhythm of her thoughts. Stepping up to the mic, vulnerability wouldn't just be a tool, it would be her shield, her truth laid bare. As the doors creaked open and murmurs fused with laughter drifted in, Jake squeezed her hand gently, a silent promise of support. Sarah knew this night wasn't merely about success or failure, but about possibilities unfolding. Would she seize the solid ground emerging beneath her feet, or let her fears tether her once more?
The sound of footsteps reverberating behind the door signaled the crowd's entrance, and Sarah briefly closed her eyes, internally questioning whether she could trust herself in that moment. Tonight wasn't just an exhibition of art, but a defining chapter of her newfound existence, one yet to be shaped by her own hands. With a heart filled with mixed trepidation and burgeoning hope, she stepped forward into the light, ready to confront the audience and herself in all her rawness. But the shadows still lingered, and the question pulsed in the beat of her heart. What would her art reveal when the vulnerability of truth met the scrutiny of judgment? The opening whispers of the crowd beckoned her forward, and with that came a sense of impending revelation. The spotlight flickered as Sarah stepped forward, the weight of the audience's gaze settling heavily upon her shoulders. The air thickened with anticipation, the murmurs fading into a silence that seemed to amplify her heartbeat. Each beat resonated with a mix of nervousness and resolve, drawing her to the mic as if it were a lifeline in turbulent waters. She glanced at Jake, who offered an encouraging nod. In that moment, the noise faded fully, leaving only the rhythmic pulse of her own thoughts. For years, she had been hidden beneath layers of self-doubt, bound by the judgments of those who failed to see her worth. The blurred faces in the crowd now transformed into silhouettes of her past, echoing the laughter and derision she had endured. But what if tonight, in this space of creation, she could pivot that narrative? "Thank you all for coming." Her voice emerged, surprisingly steady. "I'm Sarah, and tonight I want to share my journey through art." As she spoke, she forced herself to meet the eyes of the spectators, noting their diverse expressions: curiosity, indifference, and perhaps a touch of skepticism. No matter their perception, one thing was clear. She was no longer the shy girl shrouded in shadows. The first brushstroke of her story unfolded, a mixture of childhood dreams and sobering realities. Growing up, I struggled with self-expression, but through painting, I discovered a world where my feelings didn't just exist, they transformed into colors and forms. The more she spoke, the more those hues glimmered vividly in her mind, each shade representing her triumphs and struggles. But as she began to delve deeper into her past, a familiar fear crept upon her, those mocking voices faintly reverberating in her conscience. What if this was not enough? What if they didn't see the significance behind her work? The night was supposed to redefine her, yet the remnants of doubt lingered, casting shadows across her burgeoning confidence. Jake's presence flickered in her peripheral vision, a subtle reminder of her strength. She could almost feel the warmth of his belief stealing away the dark tendrils of her fear, replacing them with vivid strokes of self-assurance. "This is not just art," she asserted, finding her voice gaining tempo. "It is an exploration of what it means to be seen. Each piece reflects a piece of me." With every phrase she articulated, Sarah felt an intimate dance between vulnerability and determination. The audience leaned a little closer, intrigued by the thread of authenticity woven through her words. Realizations sparked within her, illuminating truths she had kept tucked away for so long. This was not merely about her art, but an assertion of her identity, her intrinsic worth as an artist and as a person. As she delved into the stories behind each painting, she described their emotional roots, detailing the struggles that birthed creativity. The brush had become her weapon against insecurities, each stroke a declaration of strength. With each narrative she revealed, a quiet defiance built within her. Yet, amid her growing confidence, a kernel of anxiety hung heavily. What if they remained unresponsive? What if her truth was met with silence? But then, what if they connected to her words? What if she inspired even one person in the room? Breath hitching slightly, she broke from deep thought, redirecting herself. "I stand here today not just as an artist, but as someone learning to embrace my imperfections, my fears, and my dreams." The audience shifted. Sarah could sense the scrutiny morph into something richer: connection, empathy, a ripple of shared experiences. The room buzzed with a palpable energy, a collective inhale of curiosity as they absorbed the depth of her journey. In moments of vulnerability, she had unwittingly extended an invitation for understanding, not just for herself, but for the audience she had initially feared. As she concluded her speech, a crescendo of emotion swept through her. It was raw, intoxicating, and liberating. Breaking the boundary of fear, she had emerged as her true self. The girl who had once trembled at the thought of ridicule now stood boldly in the light, unashamed of who she was. But as the applause reverberated, pulling her
Momentarily from her introspection, she realized that this night was only the beginning. Questions lingered, feeding her yearning for growth. How would she navigate the uncertain path ahead? What would it mean to continuously thrive beyond this moment of bravery? Jake's smile shone brightly as the crowd erupted in appreciation, but deep inside, a new question gnawed at her. Was she truly ready to face the uncharted journey of an artist, or would the past come back to haunt her in unexpected ways? The applause faded like the last echoes of a distant storm, leaving Sarah in a curious silence where only her thoughts dared to stir. The weight of the moment settled upon her. This was not merely triumph. It was the beginning of an exploration into her identity as an artist and as a person. Yet, beneath the exhilaration lingered a tide of uncertainty. Her heart raced with the thrill of recognition, but her mind wrestled with the shifting landscape of hidden fears and aspirations. Jake approached her as the crowd dispersed, his enthusiasm lighting up the dimming space around them. "You were incredible," he said, beaming, as if his words were a soft blanket wrapping her in warmth. But she couldn't shake the unease curled around her like a shadow. What came next? "Thanks," she replied, her smile masking the whirlwind inside. "But what if tonight was just a fluke? What if everyone forgets me by morning?" His brow creased, and he took a step closer, his expression serious. "You have to understand, Sarah. What you did tonight was monumental. You shared parts of yourself that are raw and real. That's what people connect with. It's not about perfection." He paused, as if gauging the best way to reach her. "It's about being authentic, and you nailed that." The weight of his words clung to the air, both reassuring and intimidating. Authenticity. How could she continue to reveal herself without plunging back into the self-doubt she thought she had evaded? Could she sustain this momentum, or was she poised for a downfall as the novelty of her courage wore thin? Determined to wrestle with these doubts rather than let them fester, Sarah made a decision. She would confront her past and the fears that haunted her. The following afternoon, she returned to her old studio, a humble space crammed into the back of a former bakery, remnants of her teenage years clinging to the peeling walls like old wallpaper. As she opened the door, the familiar scent of turpentine and dried paint choked her with nostalgia, but opportunity dazzled in the dust motes dancing in the sunlight that streamed through the window. This was the birthplace of her self-discovery, where she had first dipped her brushes into insecurity and unearthed her soul's palette. Today would not be about reliving her past, though. Today she would confront it. Pulling canvas sheets from the stacked piles, she felt a spark of resolve igniting inside. She began painting feverishly, vibrant colors spilling over each other, creating chaotic yet beautiful depictions of her struggles. Each brushstroke was an articulation of the torment she had battled for years, the laughter of classmates, the whispers of doubt, and the relentless pursuit of self-esteem buried beneath layers of paint. Hours flew by, lost in the rhapsody of her artistry, until she staggered back to capture the chaos sprawled before her. It was more than just a depiction of her journey. It was a confrontation, a declaration of independence from the chains of her past. But as twilight snuck into the corners of her studio, an unsettling thought hovered on the periphery of her mind. Would anyone else see the transformation that radiated from the canvas when she finally laid it bare before the world? The nagging doubt felt like an anchor, threatening to pull her down. Then there was a sudden knock at the door, a sound that sliced through her concentration. Hesitating, she called out, "Who's there?"
The door creaked open, revealing a familiar face, Sophie, an old friend who had known her during those difficult years. "I saw the video of your speech," Sophie grinned, stepping inside with unguarded enthusiasm. "I had to see you. What's happening in here?" Caught between the past and present, Sarah faced her friend, realizing the interaction might be her next challenge, one of vulnerability and confrontation. Sophie's eyes sparkled with genuine curiosity, a mirror reflecting both admiration and expectation. "Come see," Sarah gestured, reluctantly exposing her latest work. Sophie stepped closer, her expression shifting to one of deep contemplation, and Sarah held her breath, wondering if this moment would either elevate her newfound strength or shatter it. "Wow, this is," Sophie began, pausing as if struggling to find the right words. "It's powerful. I can see how much you've grown." But could she categorize this moment as growth, or was it merely an illusion, a brief pause before the inevitable fall? The uncertainty hung thick in the air, an unyielding barrier that dared Sarah to venture deeper into the unknown. As a silence enveloped them, Sarah's breath quickened. What truth would be uncovered in this collision of past and present? Would it be more than art? Would it propel her further into realms of recognition and self-acceptance? She braced herself. The real confrontation was just beginning. The silence stretched, thick and taut, until Sophie finally spoke again. "I remember when this place felt like a cage for you, and now—" Her voice trailed off, as if searching for words that wouldn't diminish the significance of what Sarah had created. "But now?" Sarah pressed, her heart racing, amplifying the tension. Was Sophie about to pull the rug from under her newfound confidence? Sophie turned back to the canvas, her brow furrowed. "You've transformed it into a mirror of your growth. It's vibrant, chaotic, and most importantly, honest." Honesty. The word lingered like a specter, echoing in Sarah's mind. For so long, honesty had been a double-edged sword. The possibility of vulnerability often left her paralyzed. "Is that what I've done?" she murmured, more to herself than to Sophie. "Absolutely," Sophie insisted, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "You're no longer hiding behind perfect brushstrokes or pristine compositions. You're revealing the messy journey. It's beautiful." As Sarah absorbed those words, a growling storm of emotions swirled within her. Could this be it, the breakthrough? Or merely another fleeting moment, destined to fade into an echo of her past? Feeling an impulse clawing at her insides, she decided to challenge the complacency of her thoughts. But what if the beauty isn't enough? What if nobody gets it? What if it doesn't make an impact? Sophie stepped closer, her expression serious. Maybe it's not about everyone getting it. Maybe it's about you finally owning your story. You're the artist. You dictate what impact it has. The truth nestled into Sarah's consciousness, a seed of belief battling against her internal doubts. Still, the fear remained, curling in the shadows of her mind. What if her choice to be authentic attracted critics rather than admirers? "You've shown strength in the face of adversity tonight. Don't let the fear of judgment paralyze you now," Sophie continued, her voice steady as a lighthouse in a dark storm. "Easier said than done," Sarah shot back, frustration mounting. Yet she knew her friend meant well. The struggle was palpable. Sophie's light illuminating paths Sarah never thought possible, yet thick shadows loomed, threatening to amplify her vulnerabilities. In that moment, Sarah recognized a deeper truth. To grow meant confronting these fears at every turn. Instead of retreating into self-doubt, she had to embrace the discomfort and let it guide her forward. "Okay," said Sarah, her voice steadier than before. "But I can't just throw this out into the world without purpose. It needs a plan. I need to know what comes next." "Then let's plan together," Sophie urged, her enthusiasm infectious. "Let's brainstorm how to share this, how to turn that fear into a celebration of your journey. You have the power to direct how your story unfolds going forward." The mere idea sparked a flicker of ambition within Sarah. They could strategize, populate her dream with tangible goals, and create actionable steps. For the first time in a long time, the thought of vulnerability seemed less like a trap and more like a ladder leading to uncharted heights. They spent hours weaving ideas back and forth, motivated by renewed purpose. The concepts flowed freely between them, vibrant and teeming with possibilities. Sarah felt everything evolve around her, an initial thread of excitement weaving through her newfound clarity. But as the night deepened, a gnawing sense of lingering doubt crept in again. Who would take her seriously? Would this become yet another exercise in futility? "Do you think it's really possible to break these mental chains?" Sarah asked, suddenly questioning her audacity to dream. "Yes," Sophie replied, her determination unwavering. "You have something unique. Share it. The worst that can happen is learning what doesn't work."
"But I promise, you will never regret the path of authenticity." In that moment, Sarah felt the first genuine spark of courage igniting, a recognition that the real battle lay not just in creating art, but in sharing it. Could she transform fear into motivation, doubt into determination? A whirlwind of intent swirled in her mind, pushing her forward. "Then let's do this," Sarah said, newfound determination sharpening her resolve. Just as she found her stride, however, Sophie paused and tilted her head. "Wait, what about Jake? You need to let him know too. His words lit a fire, remember?" A chill slithered down Sarah's spine at the thought of revealing not just her art, but her intentions to him. Would this conversation reveal the depth of her intentions, or would it unravel her hard-won courage? As the weight of that decision settled on her, she braced for the possibility of confronting not only her art, but also the vulnerabilities tied to her growing connection with Jake. The real emotional reckoning loomed just ahead. Would she dare to dive into that uncertainty? The answer would determine not just her future as an artist, but the very trajectory of her life. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the air fill her lungs with a sharp sense of purpose. Her mind was awash with conflicting emotions. The excitement of reclaiming her narrative mingled uneasily with the fear of revealing herself to Jake. If she could craft art from her turmoil, could she weave words from the web of vulnerability that bound her? "Okay," she finally said, determination layering her anxiety. "I need to talk to him, don't I?" "Definitely," Sophie replied, her gaze unwavering. "You're ready. The only thing standing between you and your next step is that conversation." Was she really ready? The thought tightened around her chest like a vice. She wanted to share her journey, to show Jake what she'd created, yet she remained tethered to her familiar fears. What if her art, her authenticity, all of it, crumbled under scrutiny? Taking a risk in her professional life felt daunting enough. Exposing her emotional landscape put her entire being on the line. But what if I mess it up? How will he view my work? The words spilled from her before she could contain them, colored with self-doubt. Sophie rolled her eyes playfully, a smile tugging at her lips. "You're an artist, Sarah. That's part of the game. You're never going to please everyone, but think of the freedom in being honest." Freedom. It was a tantalizing prospect that contrasted sharply with the fear of exposure. Sarah closed her eyes, envisioning the conversation with Jake. What if he didn't appreciate her growth? What if he dismissed her, reducing her journey to tangled brushstrokes on a canvas? As those thoughts spiraled, she forced herself to focus on the bright spots. Jake had seen her potential. His encouragement in those delicate moments made her realize how far she had come. Perhaps sharing her
truth was a different kind of canvas, one where vulnerability transformed into strength. "All right, let's do it," she said, her voice infused with new energy. "But I want to plan. I need to articulate my vision and where I'm coming from." "Absolutely," Sophie replied, beaming. "When do you want to do this?" Taking a moment, Sarah answered firmly. "Soon. I can't let the moment slip by." The commitment to confront her fears set a fire in her chest, stoking a resolve she hadn't recognized before. They spent the following days preparing. Sarah pored over sketches, indexing her thoughts like a diary laid open before them. Each piece of art captured not merely landscapes or figures, but the echoes of her doubts and courage. The intention behind her work was as important as the art itself. Sophie guided her through the articulation, emphasizing the need to express not just the what, but also the why. In the evenings, Sarah would pace in her studio, the canvases standing as towering witnesses to her struggle and triumph. The decisions she made became more deliberate, her movements reflecting a dancer moving gracefully through an unpredictable narrative. Yet even as she built momentum, moments of trepidation intruded. What if she couldn't convey the significance of her journey? What if he didn't understand the depth of her growth? She reminded herself that each time she wrestled with doubt, she was crafting a new piece of her inner landscape. On the day she finally summoned the courage to call Jake, her heart felt like a drum. "It's now or never," she whispered to herself. After composing her thoughts, she pressed the dial button, waiting for the familiar sound of his voice. "Hey, Sarah." Jake's tone came through the receiver, light and buoyant, as if he were calling from a different world. Gathering her courage, she hesitated a beat before responding. "Hi, Jake. Can we talk?" When the weight of his silence surged through the line, she felt something inside her shift. She wasn't just asking to share her art. She was seeking a connection beneath the surface, a way to unravel the doubts that had held her captive for too long. As the conversation began to unfold, Sarah's resolve deepened. Would she be able to step into the vulnerability of her truth? As she ventured deeper into the unknown, an unmistakable tension built within her. Would this pivotal moment illuminate her journey, or would it reveal yet another layer of uncertainty lurking beneath her newfound determination? The silence on the line expanded, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating blanket. She could hear Jake's faint breathing, each inhale igniting her apprehension. This was simply a conversation, an exchange between two friends, yet the stakes felt interminably high, teetering on the edge of what she had both built and hidden. "Sure, Sarah, what's on your mind?" His casual tone offered a false sense of reassurance. I've been working on some new pieces," she started, the words slipping out hesitantly.
Like fragile birds flapping into a tempest. "And I feel like they might mean something more than what I've done before." An instant flicker of doubt coursed through her. What if he didn't grasp what she was trying to say? What if he dismissed her efforts? "Go on," Jake encouraged, his voice steady, anchoring her as she drifted through the turbulent waters of uncertainty. "I want to show you the art, Jake, the new direction I've taken," she said, the urgency in her voice surprising her. She wanted him to understand, to validate every ounce of effort she had poured into this work. It's about transformation, about vulnerability. It's me exposing my fears." "Sounds deep, Sarah. I'd love to see it. When can we meet?" His eagerness clashed with her instinctive apprehension. The thought of unveiling a myriad of emotions encapsulated in her art felt like standing naked before a crowd. "Soon," she replied, swallowing hard. "I just need a little time to prepare. I haven't been this open before." "Take your time," he assured her, "but don't wait too long, all right? It's important." His words hung in the air, amplifying the urgency she felt. She had spent so long preparing to face these emotions, but hadn't grasped how chillingly vulnerable the act would be. This wasn't just about him seeing her art. It was about him witnessing her rebirth, every jagged line and color representing a reclaiming of her spirit. "Can we meet at the gallery next week then?" Sarah suggested, her heart racing at the thought of the impending rendezvous. "Absolutely. I'll clear my schedule. Looking forward to it," he replied. And this time, the flicker of excitement in his voice ignited something within her. As they ended the call, Sarah placed the phone down and stood in her studio, surrounded by her creations, each canvas representing keys to the labyrinth of her soul. The colors whispered to her, urging her on, but doubt lingered, weaving its way through her thoughts like a sinister thread.
What if these revelations were more than just art? What if revealing herself meant being stripped bare, inviting judgment she wasn't ready to face? What if it all came crashing down in an echo of her once broken past? Sarah's resolve fought against the tide of anxiety. This call with Jake was the first real step she had taken toward her growth, an opening to a new chapter. The fear that clawed at the edges of her mind had no place among the art she had created. Her personal evolution deserved to shine. Over the next days, she immersed herself in her work, each stroke a battle against lingering self-doubt. The clarity she sought hung just beyond her grasp, yet she felt stronger with each passing moment. But just as she began to gain ground, an unexpected doubt surfaced. Did her art represent the full scope of her reality? Did she even know what that reality was anymore? With the date of their meeting looming, she began to question everything anew. Could she truly be authentic, allowing the darkest parts of her to collide with the light? Would Jake be the catalyst for her further evolution, or would he merely echo the insecurities she thought she had washed away? The night before their meeting, sleep evaded her, tossing her thoughts into relentless waves. Beneath the surface of her mounting excitement, the question pulsated. Where would this journey take her, and what would it reveal? The moment of choice loomed large before her, but as she paced the studio floor, each heartbeat pulsed with determination. Would she be able to embrace her vulnerabilities, or would fear slip its hands on the reins once more? Just then, a brush against her foot drew her eye to a discarded canvas, crumpled in the corner. What truths did it hold? Perhaps the next chapter of her story was hidden within its folds, waiting to be uncovered. The morning sun streamed through the dusty windows of Sarah's studio, igniting splashes of color and shadow across her canvases. She stared at the crumpled piece of canvas, recalling the initial fervor with which she had attacked it. It was a failed attempt, but failure felt like a necessary partner in her journey. As if pulled by an unseen force, she reached for it, feeling its texture beneath her fingers, a raw representation of imperfection. What could she learn from this fragment of her past? She began to smooth it out, her fingers releasing the tension trapped in the fabric. Each crease released a whisper of doubt, reminding her of moments when she felt incapable, moments when fear paralyzed creativity. The canvas told a story, albeit one of inadequacy. If she could transform this, couldn't she transform the insecurities that held her back? As her mind wandered, the vivid colors of her successful pieces danced in her thoughts. Each brushstroke acted as a reminder of her potential. Could she incorporate the rawness of this rejected canvas into her upcoming showcase with Jake? The thought fueled her determination. This might be the key to crafting an authentic narrative, one that portrayed both strength and vulnerability intertwined. With newfound resolve, Sarah turned her attention to her easel. Mixing colors, she allowed the emotions that spiraled within her to guide each stroke. Bold reds, vulnerable blues, enchanting greens. This new approach felt like a purging of her internal conflicts. The more she painted, the clearer her vision became. She didn't have to hide. This was her awakening, and she could encapsulate the entirety of her experience, the struggles coloring in the spaces of her triumphs. The day of the exhibition dawned with a mix of excitement and anxiety. As she arranged her pieces in the gallery, she felt as if she were preparing for battle. Each canvas became an armor, shielding her treasures of authenticity. Nevertheless, the reality of standing before Jake, bearing her soul through art, was daunting. What if her dedication didn't? What if he didn't see her meaning? The whispers began again, wrapping around her like the suffocating blanket she had felt during their call. Realizing the futility of her worries, she internally questioned her purpose once more. Was this art merely for validation from Jake, or was it a step toward validation from herself? The answer, buried in the depths of her artistry, rang clear. She needed to embrace her truth, regardless of external perceptions. "Sarah!" Jake's vibrant voice pierced through her reverie, shattering her waking fears. She turned to face him, noting how his gaze lingered over the canvases. The warmth of his presence quieted the storms within her, igniting a flicker of hope. "Hey," she replied, her heart racing, a mix of anticipation and terror swirling in her chest. He approached a canvas painted in muted tones, the colors struggling for dominance. "This one. It feels so raw. What inspired it?" For a heartbeat, Sarah froze, suddenly aware that they stood at a crossroads. Every decision she made now could lead to revelations or retractions. Would she steer the conversation towards safety or dip into the depths of her uncertainty? "It's about the struggle between chaos and clarity," she said, her voice steadier than she anticipated. "I've always thought I had to negate the chaos to find clarity, but now I'm realizing they coexist." Jake studied her, an intensity in his gaze that made her feel seen. "That's profound. You're not just revealing your art, you're laying bare your journey. This is about you." With those words, the edges of her fears began to blur. Maybe this encounter was not solely about Jake understanding her art. It was about her grasping the full spectrum of her identity through the art she created. The past might have shaped her, but it no longer dictated her narrative. The rhythms of their conversation began to shift, and Sarah felt empowered. She could uncover her truth without the burden of judgment. But as she spoke, a deeper, more troubling realization emerged. What if her journey, despite its weight, was only beginning? What if every art piece, every brushstroke she made, was a portal into an existence she had yet to fully understand? As thoughts skated toward the edge of clarity, she couldn't help but wonder, what more would she uncover about herself through this process? And as Jake's eyes mirrored uncertainty and fascination, another question took form. Was she ready to confront the deepest shadows of her past, to pull them into the light? Just as clarity beckoned, uncertainty clawed back, whispering its discontent. What lay ahead could either illuminate her path or plunge her deeper into the unknown. Would she embrace this nascent chapter of exploration, or hold herself hostage to fears anew? The days that followed the exhibition rippled with the energy of transformation. As Sarah stood on the brink of a new chapter in her life, the audience's response to her artwork had transcended her wildest hopes, a validation that
resonated throughout her being. People left the gallery buzzing with tales of inspiration, and for the first time she felt no need to shy away from her identity as an artist. Yet, amidst the accolades walked an underlying current of uncertainty still tugging at her. What did this newfound recognition mean for her future? Did it indicate permanence, or merely a transient moment of success? Each evening, despite the affirmations, her thoughts spun with the question, had she truly conquered the specters of her self-doubt, or were they simply lying in wait for her next misstep? It was during one of those introspective evenings that she received a message from Jake. He had expressed pride in her journey and urged her to continue exploring her creative instincts fearlessly. The warmth of his words enveloped her and emboldened the dormant dreams nestled further within. Yes, this was her moment to step further into the light, not just for herself, but for the woman she aimed to be. That weekend marked another significant occasion, the opening of her first solo show at the Grand Oak Hotel, a bold partnership fostered through Jake's encouragement. As she prepared, Sarah found herself reflecting on the countless nights lost to both fear and ambition. Now, with each meticulous detail in the gallery, she harnessed the clarity achieved through her art. This was no longer mere canvases. This was a declaration of her identity, her resilience, and her voice. She meticulously hung her pieces, a collection that now told not just stories of struggle, but also illuminated her growth. Each brushstroke echoed her triumphs against the chaotic tide of insecurity. Guests would soon trickle in. A cacophony of doubt would no longer dictate her narrative. This was her opportunity not merely to showcase her art, but to reclaim the power that resided in her emotions. The night of her solo show unfolded like a painting, vibrant with anticipation,
and the tender whispers of her past mingling with the promise of the future. The gallery glimmered under soft lights, reflecting the spectrum of feelings she had navigated. Sarah spotted Jake among the attendees, his presence inviting calm and confidence, testaments to her evolving relationship, one that seemed to be slowly blossoming without the weight of expectation. As guests admired her work, she felt the embrace of newfound serenity. Her paintings resonated with them, and the energy shifted from mere validation to a collective understanding. The chaos she once avoided revealed a beauty within the struggles presented. For every external gaze, she felt a shadow dissolve. The judgment she had long feared was replaced with admiration and support. Eventually, she found herself before the crowd, standing beneath the softly lit finale of her journey, the desire to share her narrative bubbling forth. Taking a deep breath, she began. Thank you all for being here tonight. This show represents not only my artistry, but a journey of perseverance against the odds. As she recounted the path from her time as a maid to this moment, on the cusp of authenticity, her voice wavered yet strong. Art has been my medium, my language of resilience. With every stroke on the canvas, I invite you to see the colors of my struggle, the depth of my self-discovery. The vulnerability flowed through her words, igniting a spark throughout the audience. They nodded along, fully immersed, no longer distant spectators, but participants in a shared experience of transformation. Despite the past haunting my journey, I stand here today repurposed, bracing my truth, harmonizing vulnerability and strength. I have learned that embracing the messy and chaotic is what truly illuminates our path. As applause erupted, Sarah felt the weight of her journey lift, replaced by buoyancy and power. She stood there, not merely an artist, but a woman who had learned to navigate the depths of her own existence. Sarah realized that she had conquered the shadows, for they no longer silenced her, but had instead become the colors of her artistry. In that moment, she embraced the depths of her reality, the chaos, the vulnerabilities, and the beauty of authenticity, and felt an unwavering sense of accomplishment. No longer would she shy away from the complexity of her journey. This night signaled a newfound beginning, both as an artist and as Sarah, a woman ready to forge her path with confidence and clarity. Looking towards Jake, she saw pride reflected in his gaze, a moment of shared recognition that this was the beginning of their journey together. No barriers of inadequacy remained. She had metamorphosed fully. As the crowd settled, she turned the final canvas to face everyone, the vibrant chaos radiating all that she had released, inviting them deep into her world and her future. Would they understand the layers she had woven? In sharing herself authentically, she had achieved not just personal growth, but the profound realization she belonged in this space, and her journey had only just begun. This was her metamorphosis, her lifelong commitment to courage within vulnerability, the transformation of shadows into art, and finally, the affirmation that she would never look back. It was time to write the next chapter with intention, excellence, and the unyielding spirit of unwavering truth. Her truth. And now, viewers, if you resonated with this journey of self-discovery, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss what comes next. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that helps these stories reach more hearts. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this profound conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to inspire someone else with the power of personal transformation. This was her metamorphosis, her lifelong commitment to courage within vulnerability, the transformation of shadows into art, and finally, the affirmation that she would never look back. It was time to write the next chapter with intention, excellence, and the unyielding spirit of unwavering truth. Her truth. And now, viewers, if you resonated with this journey of self-discovery, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss what comes next. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that helps these stories reach more hearts. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this profound conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to inspire someone else with the power of personal transformation.